Hello guys, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 tips based on my experience in Japan. So my tip 10 is basically you don't need to know Japanese to go to Japan. A lot of people think you need to know Japanese to get through Japan, but that's not true at all, especially if you're going on a 2-week trip. In some places, you don't even interact with a lot of employees, and that's pretty much due to their low pressure surface culture. Some may call it introverted, but honestly, it's just respectful for some people who's living in Japan. That being said, learning a little bit of key phrases does help, especially if you're going to places like train stations, convenience, restaurants, or other shops. It does make things smoother for you. And trust me, just knowing a little bit of key phrases does help, and actually the Japanese people appreciate that because it shows respect. But also it's because they don't speak English, so it does help a lot. And so I recommend just a little bit of key phrases. Okay, so for my next tip is number 9, and that's pretty much being equipped when you go to Japan and just being prepared. When you're in Japan, we all know that you're gonna be walking a lot, going on train stations, going to visit temples and all those good stuff. So one of the main things that I think you should get is a portable charger. You can bring your own from home, or you can buy one at the convenience shop. Honestly, don't recommend it because they're shit. Honestly, because they only run on AA batteries, and I use one of those things. They're not great. The only thing it does is keep your phone alive, and it doesn't really charge it that well. I kind of learned the hard way by not bringing one, especially since I didn't know where the fuck I was going. I was trying to find my Airbnb, and honestly, my phone was on 1%, and there were no outlets nowhere to be found because they only exist inside cafes and McDonald's and stuff like that. And by the time I was there in Japan, it was already late, so I couldn't use none of those things. They do have charging stations, but honestly, they do cost some money. I don't really recommend it anyway because I don't want to sit there and wait till my phone charges. So I do recommend just getting a portable charger so you won't have that issue like I did with my dumbass with only 1%. And I don't know why the fuck my shit was on 1%, but it was. All right, so for number 8, we got money. Okay, so we know that Japan is a cash-based society, but I can see that it's kind of slowly changing, especially in Tokyo. In some stores, they do only take cards only, which I kind of think is kind of wild to see that, but you know, it is what it is. But besides that, however, if you're a first-time traveler, you obviously can exchange your money either by the airport, ATM machines in Japan, or your local bank. But honestly, I feel like if you do that, only take a small amount of money. And here's why. Once you're in a city, especially in a spot like Osaka, it's a place in Namba where you'll find street level money exchange vendors offering way better rates. Some are so competitive they match online market rate with low commission and zero hidden fees. And honestly, I feel like that's the best option for me at least. But it's your money, so you can do whatever you want. But that's just my recommendation for you. But once you land, you're basically home free. And there is a secret of going to Japan with like less money than you think you need. So going to Japan multiple times, I think the most cheapest city in my opinion is Osaka. And that's mainly due to like their attractions and food being way more cheap than it is in Tokyo. And I know that a lot of people want to go to Tokyo, but I honestly, in my experience, it's very pricey, especially in places if you're an anime fan going to Akihabara. You can get the same thing, like action figure that may cost you what, 8,000 yen. Over there, it costs you probably like 2,000, and that's just based on my experience in all the stores that I've been to. So, and not only that, I feel like Tokyo is more of a luxury stand, and I think Osaka is more just like, you know, having fun, you know, low budget, and I honestly recommend it for anybody who's a first-time traveler. However, if you're a person who has a lot of money, then yeah, I think Tokyo would be better for you because I feel like it's more about the luxury than it is in Osaka. But I think one of the reasons why I keep bringing up Osaka is because you also have other places like Kyoto, Kobe, Nara, just the whole Kansai area which everything's pretty much an hour away. And that's why I love it so much. I love Kansai. And as for your accommodation, I only would recommend hotels if you're only staying there for maybe like a couple of days, maybe a week. But I would say Airbnb all the way. I always get Airbnb, especially when I go to Japan, because it's so cheap, and I think it gives you more privacy and more space than it would in a hotel. And I know a lot of people likes their service in the hotel, but I'd rather just have more of my privacy and do my own things and get my own luggage. So going back to flights, there is a way where you can save some money, and that's just by doing one-way trips rather than round trip. Booking one-way trips does save me hundreds of dollars, and that's just based on my experience and where I'm from. And I can give you an example of that. The only downside to this is that if you having connecting flights on this one-way trip, you are responsible for anything that happens. This means if you miss a flight due to one of your other flights being delayed, they can't do nothing for you. You lost that trip. So make sure when you booking your flights, make sure they're at least 4 or 5 hours apart, or maybe on the different days. Just take that layover, man. I'm telling you, it's going to save you time and money if you're trying to get to Japan. So as you can see, I'm going to be flying from Houston to Los Angeles, which is only going to cost me $363, and that's due to me trying to fly first class. Then on the next day, I'm going to be flying from Los Angeles to Fukuoka, which is going to cost me $502. However, since I'm a one-key card holder, I'm only paying $67, which I do recommend if you're using Expedia if you want to save money on costs on flights. And just to include the ride back home, I'm only paying $895, which in total for the whole trip is $1,300. And just to compare with other flights, which I am flying on Japan Airlines, I am saving around $600 by just doing my way and one-way trips. So I do highly recommend doing this. Another thing is make sure you recheck your bags, because unlike round trips, you have to recheck your bags because you're going on a different airlines after that. It's not the same thing. It doesn't transfer over. So that's another downside to doing a one-way trip, the way how I do it at least. Bottom line is, if you want to see Japan without breaking the bank, start in Osaka. Save Tokyo for a future trip or split your time between the two. And when booking flights, just be strategic about it. The money you save could cover extra days in Japan, and that's always worth it. Okay, so at number 6, the next tip is treat Japan like it's your last. I'm going to keep it real with you. Too many foreigners go to Japan and barely scratch the surface of what the country has to offer. They spend their whole trip living inside the internet bubble, doing the same exact thing that every other tourist do. This cannot be you at all. I don't want to sit here and just be like, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I just feel like a lot of people miss out when they go to Japan. A lot of people, all they really do is just go to, 7-Eleven, go get a convenience egg sundo, whatever, and then you go to the club or a bar like that, and you go probably to one temple or Disneyland or one car meet, and there's so much more that Japan has to offer, but you're just stuck in that gaijin loop with all the YouTubers and TikTok say with the top 10, maybe it's beginner friendly, but I feel like you should create your own way of enjoying Japan. And the reason why I feel like this is important is because this might be your only trip to Japan. So you need to treat it like it's your last if you decide to go back another time, because you never know when you're going to go back to Japan. And that's how I felt, at least, when I went to Japan for the first time. And boy, I was crying like a motherfucker on that plane because I didn't know when I was going to go back, But that's just the truth of it. I just feel that there's more to just Shibuya crossing, anime merch stores, and, USJ and Disneyland, all this stuff like that, which are fun places. But I feel like there's so much more and more, options for you rather than just keep doing the same thing. And that's actually an issue with over-tourism, with that being said. For some of you, you've been dreaming about this trip for years. So why not let it be a memorable moment for yourself, just to maximize your time? Every hour you should be doing something new. There's just honestly more than just Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. You can go to places that's beyond that. One of the different cities I went to was Nagano, and honestly, it was one of the smallest cities that you can go to. It was the countryside. And honestly, it was a different experience than what it was to being in Osaka and Tokyo combined, because there was legit no other tourists there and more than just Japanese people there. Just make sure you just do your research. You'll find more stuff than you actually think there is in Japan, Just step aside from that Instagram algorithm, TikTok, whatever, and just see what Japan is really like out there, Like I said, this is mostly your only shot of going to Japan, so just make it count. Okay, so for tip number 5, we have tourist trap. Look, if you don't do your homework, you're gonna get robbed by Japan anyway how. Some of you will be a victim for overpaying for something that is less than what it actually is, and I'm just going to say right there. Some of you are going to be like, oh, it doesn't matter, I can afford it. I'm in Japan. I have USD, and that doesn't mean nothing. Some of you are probably going to stumble on it on TikTok or YouTube, but there is such thing as a dual pricing system for foreigners and Japanese. If you're talking about places like restaurants in Shinjuku, Kyoto's Gion district, or anything like that, Shibuya, if you go to a restaurant, I always recommend you getting the Japanese menu, because most often than not, they will price you more for having the English menu. And I kind of figured that out when I was in Japan. Like, the price is different. I don't know why. You don't get anything else special. It's the same type of food you're getting. It's like a slick trick that they do in Japan. I don't know why they do that. And so for me, yeah, I think you should always get the Japanese menu no matter what. Just use your phone if you don't understand the kanji or katakana, and just translate. The next type of tourist trap that I always run into is basically me as a black person dealing with the Nigerians. I'm not saying that everybody will deal with them. You might, but I feel like I'm an easier target because I'm black. They're trying to appeal to me, so they'll probably be like, "Hey, what's up, G? What's going on, man? It's your first time in Japan," or something like that. It's their job to bottle you up and all these other things. I get it. But I think the problem with that is that they think, oh, you want girls, I can find you a good time and all this stuff like that, until you get into the bar or club, and then you think, oh, this is going to be on the house, free and shit like that, everything they promise you. And then they give you a fucking bill that's like 6,000 yen. Now, I'm not saying this from experience, but I just noticed ahead of time what they do. So if you're a person, if you're black or anybody who's just going to these places and they'd be like, hey, I can get you in this place for free like that. If something is too good to be true, do not do it. Just don't do it. Don't take anything from nobody. It doesn't matter if you're trying to be your friend. Yeah. And then you got the overpriced souvenir shops, man. I'm mostly talking about people who usually go shop for like anime merch or electronics. They want to go to Akihabara or any other places for their collection and stuff like that. One of the things I can tell you is just try to avoid main stores that are pretty much like the tourist frenzy for you, because I think 9 times out of 10, the first 2 floors are always going to be, the gaijin floors. And what I mean by that is that you probably will go into the first or second floor and find like a figurine like this, and the price tag on it is 20,000 yen. But if you go on Amazon Japan, it's probably like 3,000, 2,000. I didn't spend that much on this. This was like 800. But that's just the example of what I mean. There are 2 ways to avoid this. Honestly, I feel like you should skip the first and 2 floors, because I feel like the top floors are where most of the stuff was going to get cheaper. Plus, that's where a lot of the Japanese people go anyway. They usually take the escalator to the 3rd or 4th floor because they already know that it's already expensive. Another way to avoid this is just basically finding someone that looks like they're just into anime, I mean, if they look like a person who looks like they know how to play Tekken and work those sticks, have a Gundam t-shirt on, or just look all just nerdy, just follow them. They probably know some good spots in somewhere that's tucked in the alleyway that's not on Google Maps. Just don't buy the first thing you see. I know it's tempting, but don't listen to what it says. Don't listen if it says, oh, limited time only, special price, whatever that shit is. Just don't do it. You can always find better prices somewhere else. Just keep looking around, take your time. It might take you an hour or 2. Just save your money so you can buy more stuff or spend more time doing other things in Japan. One tourist trap that I hate the most is basically service charges and bill padding. You can't really do nothing about like the service charges because it just comes with the service. Even if they give you extra stuff like peanuts or whatever, just some complimentary stuff, and you didn't ask for it, you're just gonna have to deal with that. However, it's just the bill padding for me. And this is actually a real incident when I was in Tokyo, but just to keep it simple, let's just say that you ordered like 3 beers, right? But on the bill, it says 5. So the people who work in these type of places, they either are betting that you're too drunk to see it, or you won't acknowledge it and only will see what you actually owe in that establishment. But if you see something that's on your bill that's not supposed to be there, then you can respectfully just say, "Sumimasen, kore wa chigaimasu." And all that really means is just, excuse me, this is wrong. Japan overall is an incredible place. However, I just feel like there's too many opportunities for them to screw you over out of your money. And honestly, I don't want that to happen to you. So it's just best to make sure you're paying attention of what you're doing out there in Japan. and just make sure you're not overspending for nothing or overpaying for something that you never asked for.
I like them. She bought me some new socks.
And nice and very thin.
Wow.
Yes. That's very thin. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deku. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Okay, so for my next tip is basically just getting to know the locals. It might even change your life, you never know. This is for the people who may be traveling solo by themselves and going to Japan maybe the first time or whatever it is. But I feel like the real treasure of Japan is going to be the locals. And I can say that with experience of me being in Japan and meeting a lot of people there for the first time. One of the things I value most in Japan is hospitality. And I feel like I can get it more from a local Japanese that you see on the street rather than in a store, because they're two different things, in my opinion. The reason why I think this is because I feel like with a local, you kind of truly see that, oh, you're welcome in Japan. And that's where I got it from, actually an elderly woman who I met at a cafe. I talked to her for like 2 hours there, and then after that, she paid for my drinks and everything like that, and she offered me to go to her home. Like, and I just never understood, like, out of all people, am I the first person? You know, has she ever done this before? And it was just like a big coincidence that, you know, she might have done this for me. But, you know, I accepted her offer. And I was kind of surprised because, you know, you look at me, I'm tall, you know, I'm bigger than her, and she's skinny, and she's a 66-year-old woman, and she's inviting me to her home, and I'm just in my mind thinking, is she not scared of me? I'm a foreigner. This is our first time meeting. But she wasn't, you know, scared of me. And that's mainly because, you know, I spent time with her in a cafe. I talked to her, so she knows who I am. And that's what I mean by, you know, get to know the locals, because you never know what kind of opportunities will bring you. And when I went to her home, you know, this was when my birthday is around. So she set everything up. She made me Japanese hot pot, sushi. She bought me some cakes. She sent me a happy birthday. She bought me gifts, champagne, and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, bro, she's doing this all for me. And not only that, but like, she let me spend the night at our house. She made me a hot bath, everything. Oh my God. And then just the hospitality was just there. And I feel like this was just like the most, you know, rarest moment of my life, going to a different country, because I would never expect that. But it all came from me just having a conversation with that person. And that's why I'm saying, like, you miss so many opportunities because you don't actually, like, try to talk to them. And it doesn't matter if you don't know Japanese, just go out and just talk to them. You never know. And like I was saying, like, she did everything. Like, she paid for my meals. She took me on rides. She dropped me back on the train station, everything. She did this all for me. And, you know, she always say that, you know, if I go back to Japan, like, I'm welcome to go to her house anytime for a hot meal, or if I want to stay the night, you know. And to this day, I consider her as my Japanese grandmother. And for that, I created a bond with her. So now I can look forward to somebody anytime I go to Osaka in Japan. And that's one of the most heartwarming and insane experience I ever had in Japan. And like I said, you don't need to speak Japanese to like talk to these people, you know. Matter of fact, our conversation was either through translation or small Japanese that I know. And this was not the last, you know, gesture that someone has done for me in Japan. Like, even in club settings where I know the staff and they let me into VIP for free 2 nights in a row just because I go to the club that much and talk to that person. Human connection is really rare these days, and I can honestly say that for sure. And honestly, that's why traveling internationally will always be something special, because you never know what's going to happen to you. And honestly, you know, I enjoy being in Japan because of it. As long as you carry yourself in the most respectable way, I promise you it's going to open gates for you, no matter what you do in those countries. However,
Why the speed of the ship? I love why the speed.
You love what?
Hey.
alright, let's get real for a second. Some of you think you're going to turn into a passport bro because someone did it in that country. So it all makes you think, okay, I can do it, but that's not how it works. In some cases, it just depends on your luck and how you carry yourself while you're in Japan. I'm saying this because if you're expecting that you're gonna get every single Japanese girl there because you're a foreigner, all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. But let's just say you want to shoot your shot anyway in Japan because you see someone else do it. Alright, so there's 3 things you need to know. For all your anime lovers who are obsessed with anime girls, just know that they do not exist at all. Like, I don't know if I have to like even talk about this, but if you're expecting a girl to be this high-pitched, big titty anime girl on the street somewhere, good luck, okay? You might see these cute anime girls or in mag cafes or cosplay outfits out on the street, but that doesn't compare to what a real Japanese woman is in Japan. And I'm sure that some of y'all are not looking for that. I don't just explain for the people who may think, oh, I can find one of those that like from fucking Naruto or some shit like that and you're gonna get the same type of effect. No, it doesn't work. And the only way you're gonna find something like that is if you go on, you know, an adult website in Japan or whatever. But that's about it. So if you're the type of person who's just looking for this anime girl out there, good luck. All they're gonna do is probably laugh at you or run away. It doesn't matter. But yeah, don't assume that it's actually a real thing out there. It's not. The next type of girl I want to talk about is bar girls. And I'm not talking about the one who dress up in maids outfits, bunny outfits, or any of those like that. I'm talking about the actual bar girls at the real bars. And for this, actually, I can say this from experience because this happened to me. There was like a girl I was talking to at a bar. She works there, you know, we was just having a good conversation, all that. You know, just having fun like that. I've been there for pretty much like 1 or 2 hours. I spent quite a lot of money there. And then she had asked me, can you buy me a drink? I was like, sure, why not? You know, we were just sitting there drinking, you know. She was sitting by next to me and everything. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, she digging me, bro. She was laughing at me and like that. You know, my jokes and stuff like that, until I realized later on, you know, when I went there a couple of times just to talk to her like that. Okay, so after that first night, you know, she gave me her Instagram. We would text on DMs like that. You know, she was just, you know, being all cute and cuddly and shit like that, you know. But it was just all act. It was only supposed to get me into the store. Cause like she would say, oh, we can hang out, meet up and like that. But by that, she means just the store itself. No other connection. So for the people who goes to these bars, you know, and they're very naive and easy, you know, just look out for that, you know, because I respect their hustle. But eventually we stopped following each other, of course, because I stopped going to the bar. But just be aware of that, you know, they're just there for the money. And just because they give you an Instagram, they see all these things about you and, you know, say this and that, it doesn't mean they like you. You know, it's just the reality of it. So just move on. Okay, so this one is really for me, you know, as a black person, and I call this the aesthetic girl. Now, you may see these videos on YouTube where it's like, oh, I found my Japanese wife. Oh, they like black people out here in Japan and this and that. And this is mainly for people like me in color who thinks, oh, because, you know, I'm black, I'm going to get all the shine and all this other stuff like that. It may be true, but not always. This is only based on that specific Japanese person, you know, if they're into the black culture, you know, hip hop, R&B, just like the hood gangster like that, you know, or, you know, it's just around that stuff. It doesn't mean that you're gonna get every single Japanese girls on your dick if that's what you want. It's not true. And not only that, just because, you know, they talk to you doesn't mean they like you, honestly. It just means that they're curious and they never seen you before, you know. Maybe their first time seeing a black dude or whatever. Even if you're just a regular other foreigner, you know, it doesn't matter what country you're from. But the point is that they're just curious and want to talk to you because you came to their country and, you know, they want to learn something about you. So if you catch feelings based on these, you know, interactions, then again, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want you to go to these countries and be like, oh, fuck these hoes, bro. They're just the same like the ones back home. No, man, it's just you. It's just you and how you carry yourself, like I said before, you know. If you're the type of person who just catch feelings like then and there or looking for love because someone did it on the videos, then you're just making yourself look like a fool. Not everything you see online is reality, you know. Just because it happened to that person doesn't mean it's automatically going to happen to you, like I said. Your mere presence doesn't guarantee attention, affection, or any passport perks that you may get somewhere else. You know, just appreciate the interactions for what they are, the cultural exchange, fun conversation, even just genuine friendship. But just don't confuse curiosity with aesthetic attraction, with love or loyalty. Okay, so despite everything I said so far, I think the last 2 tips I'm going to give you is the most important. And with that being said, with the second tip, is just to have fun in Japan. And don't listen to what other people say about what you do in Japan. I think what irritates me the most are the people who comes on the internet who watches someone else goes to Japan and tell them they're doing something wrong in Japan. And I'm not talking about the ones who fucking destroy and ruin the culture. I'm talking about the simple stuff. Here's the reality. Your trip is for you, not for them. As long as you're not actively disrespecting people, breaking laws, or causing disruption in private spaces, you are fine. Most of what you hear online about rules and etiquette is exaggerated, and most of the time, the youth of Japan don't even follow these rules. One example of that is trains. You know, a lot of people think that you gotta be quiet on trains at all times, but no, it just depends on certain days, you know, where you can talk. But not always trains is always silent. I hear kids, I hear people talking all the time. You know, so I don't want people to believe that, oh, you gotta be crisscross applesauce sitting on a train and don't say nothing. You can talk, I promise you. I do it all the time. Matter of fact, I had conversations with Japanese people on the train, and you can take it from me. Another is eating while walking. I know you've seen some animes where like girl will fucking pun bread in her mouth and she's running with fucking food in her mouth. Like, you can do that. As long as it's not in like a sacred place, like a temple or something that you're not allowed to have foods, then, you know, that makes sense. But if you're on the street, it's okay. You can drink, you can eat. No one's going to stop you, I promise you. So just, you know, don't listen to these people that say, oh, you can't do this. You know, as long as the Japanese people are right with that, then it's cool. Not every social rule is strictly enforced. Most locals won't even freak out. All that matters is respect. They don't care about perfection, because Japan's not a perfect place anyway. I think one of the things I hate the most is these keyboard warriors always want to talk about rising prices, crowded streets, and cultural delusion, and always want to blame it on tourists like it's not just like the Japanese youth itself doing the same thing. And then you also got to think about domestic demand and other factors that play a big part in these things. You know, a lot of people are moving to Tokyo, these big cities like that. They're occupying these things, so that's what's going to drop up the prices and stuff like that and jack everything else. You know, and I know that some of them, it has to do with tourists, but it's not always them. You gotta think about it, you know. There's like fucking 11 million people living in Tokyo right now. Bottom line is, your trip is your experience alone. Even for me, like, you don't even have to listen to me. This is just me giving you my opinion and my tips and my advice from my experience in Japan. So if you're the type of person who just wants to go to like Japan for an egg sundae from the Gaijin Mart, or you're the type of person who wants to take a flick pic at the Shibuya crossing, go for it, man. Do you. At the end of the day, it is, you know, it's your fun. It has nothing to do with me. So just enjoy Japan while you can. But regardless of that, the main thing and the most important thing you should know, based on everything I said, is just to maintain respect and lose the entitlement that you may have in whatever country you're from. Listen, if there's one thing that can completely wreck your Japan trip or anyone else's, it's entitlement. Let me be clear, this is not your country. Whatever attitude or behavior you think works back home, leave it there. Japan is not going to play with you, and locals will notice immediately if you come in thinking the rules don't apply to you. Here's how entitlement shows up when you're in Japan. Expecting special treatment just because you're a foreigner or look cool, thinking people owe you a favor, free service and access, acting like your norms override local customs, talking loudly on trains, cutting lines, ignoring signage, and disrespecting temple etiquette. Using your presence, your skin color, size, or status as leverage to get attention, free stuff, or romantic interest is another form of entitlement when you go to Japan. Entitlement does not only hurt you in the long run, but it also kills the experience for you and everyone else who desire to go to Japan. Now, I promise you, you don't want to be that person on the internet everyone talks about because you're just like some fucking gaijin that doesn't know how to act in a different country. And also, it just kills opportunities for everybody, especially me, man. Like, you know, like I said, I've been invited to people's homes and shit like that. You know, you don't want to be that guy that ruins for everybody, you know. And I get that some people have, you know, good arguments with people doing dumb shit. So don't be that person and lose the attitude, the entitlement, and I promise you, you're going to have the best experience traveling in Japan. Alright guys, this is the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed what I put together and I decided to make some more. I want to get better at this and elope my experience from like what I think of Japan. But I will do other countries like Korea and other stuff that, you know, I plan to go on. I will go back to Japan in December. I will be going to Fukuoka and Osaka, but also Korea as well. So I look forward to that, and I want y'all to stay tuned and, you know, watch me vlog it as well. Until then, please help me out, like it. You know, if you have any questions about like Japan, you know, anything that I experienced there, just let me know. I'm just here for you guys to travel the world. That's just my ultimate goal, is just to travel, and I will do much of that on this channel. So until then, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.